Peace, Black family. So I woke up this morning and I started reading Marimba Ani's book, Yurugu. And I was going over the part where she talks about how in European culture, they elevate the written word over the spoken word, meaning that if something is written down, whether it be your Bible, your Quran, it has more relevancy and importance than the traditional way of orally passing on information. So then that took me down a rabbit hole to see how this type of elevation of the written word, like writing things down, right? How it affected our memory. I'm sure a lot of you will be surprised on how many articles I ran across that said that actually writing things down actually decreases your memory. So when our African ancestors were passing things on orally, that was a real skill. Having to remember everyone's family lineage, right, was a real skill and created mass memory. Nowadays, you got people who can't even remember their own personal cell phone number. I remember my best friend's phone number when we was a child. It's 68563. He probably wouldn't like me giving out that number. Nonetheless, Europeans have raised up the written word to be a sacred thing, to be valued, right? And they have decreased the idea of verbal communication. That's why they always send things in the office like, oh, send me an email, or do you have it written down somewhere? Because they couldn't remember those things, right? But for us, we've always passed things down orally, which, as Marimba Ani says in the book Yurugu, allowed us to have great source of memory. And here's the thing that we got to understand. People say things like, well, what if the person is lying? Lying wasn't a thing in traditional African culture. Everything that Yurugu ultimately creates leads to destruction, whether it be destruction of the environment, destruction of your memory, destruction of a relationship. It doesn't matter. Anything that they create, because they are incomplete beings, as the Dogon story goes into, everything they create is rushed, and everything they create leads to destruction. Also, let me just say this. The reason why a lot of you really believe in, the God that you believe in is because it's written in a book, and you believe that other gods are inferior or other religions are inferior because they have oral traditions. That is a European concept. That is a European way of thinking about it. My religion is more sufficient and realer than your religion because it's written down. I'm not even going to get on the religious conversation because I know a lot of us are not ready for that. But I will say this: to elevate the written word and make it sacred over the oral traditional way of passing on information is Eurocentric in nature. Now, I'm not saying that Europeans invented the written word. What I'm saying is Europeans made the written word sacred. This is why in their culture they say things like the pen is mightier than the sword. But Africans were using the written word. We just valued the idea of traditional oral history and traditional oral instructions versus writing something down. Because African culture is not about rushing things. African culture is about matriculating and growing into things, right? European culture is a microwave culture. And again, that microwave culture leads to destruction of your mind, your community, the earth, your body, etc. I'm going to show you how this idea of elevating the written word over the oral word plays out in real life scenarios. Let's say a woman is SA'd, right? And she says it verbally to people. Everyone waits around until the text messages start coming out. Then they start believing the woman. But if she orally says, oh, yeah, I was SA'd, by this person, they don't start believing her until they see it written down in a text message or etc. Now, let's be clear. That's a small example, but it's relative to the conversation. In conclusion, let me just end by saying this. Just because something is written down, whether it be your religious text, right, or email, doesn't mean that it has any more validity than something being orally spoken and taught. And if you think that, you're dealing in Yurugu-isms. The truth is the truth, whether it's written down or spoken orally.